As it would shock no one, I'm a fan of Casey Neistat. Something interesting that I've noticed about Casey's videos, especially like videos from like kind of the peak of his YouTube vlogging career, you know, like 2015, 2016, I would come away from watching one of his vlog episodes and it would be stuck in my head. I would be humming it. And what's peculiar about this is I have looked at the musicians who've made a lot of this music Casey has in the vlog. Guys like Andrew Applepie, Jeff Cale. Fantastic musicians. But when I listen to that song on SoundCloud or wherever, I'm not quite getting the same kind of hook that it had when it was in Casey's video. What gives? Why is Casey's version of the song, and what's Casey doing in this video to make it so sticky? But first, there's an interesting professor, guy by the name of David Huron. He's a professor at Ohio State University. What makes David so interesting is he's a professor, not just one department, but two departments, music and like cognitive brain science. The blending of those two disciplines is fascinating, I think, to many of us. David asked an interesting question in like a paper in 2013. If you were a composer of music, is there a way that you could create a enjoyable piece of music with the least amount of work possible? Two interesting problems in that statement, which is one, is there an algorithm for creating enjoyable music? And two, is there a way to optimize it? To do this, David explored two different topics, kind of two different topics of psychology that he blended into a new theory of kind of creating enjoyable music. The mere exposure effect. And the mere exposure effect is simply this. Another guy in like 1968, he had created like his own kanji, and he would show these characters to people. No one's ever seen these characters before. That was kind of the point. And then he would expose people to characters, different frequencies, and then he would show people two characters and ask them their preference. 92% of the time, people would choose the character they saw more often. The mere exposure to these characters made them prefer those characters. So that's called the mere exposure effect. And so it's been replicated a ton of times. You want to be in the video? Are you in the video?
What are you coloring?
I'm doing a video. I'm going to draw some diagrams.
The color.
Well, I'm not coloring yet. I got to do some diagrams. I'm not to the diagramming portion yet of today's vlog episode. So that's repetition, right? If you can repeat stuff, you'll make it more enjoyable for your listeners. But there's a flip side to this. It's called habituation. The reason you don't feel the clothes on your body right now is because of habituation. As a baby, you probably felt your first shirt, but we get used to this. Just like right now I'm surrounded by noises, like my appliances, I don't know, neighbors upstairs, whatever. I hear it. Maybe the first time I was distracted by it, maybe the first time I ever wore a shirt, I was distracted by it. I'm habituated to it now. That's not a good thing for creators. We don't want people to ignore our work. When our work blends into the background, it no longer triggers any kind of significance for people. People tune it out. So, you want repetition, but not to the point where people habituate to your work. So that's what David realized. And so he created this like theory of basically creating repetition, but doing something called dishabituation. Comes up with this algorithm. If you were to create a piece of music, let's call it A. According to the theory of like mere exposure, you could just do A, over and over and over again. But people will start to tune it out because of habituation. Here's where mice come in. How do you dishabituate people and animals? And it's simply, you play something else. You give them a new stimuli. If a mouse heard the note A, a mouse will just like stop in its tracks because of the stimuli. But if you do that over and over and over again, the mouse habituates, stops paying attention. So what's the secret? You play a B. And now all of a sudden, like the B becomes novel and the mouse is paying attention to the B. But here's where it got really interesting. If you do the B, now if you do an A again, the mouse freezes again. All of a sudden this B, it's like it reset the mouse. It resets animals, and it resets us too. We get used to A, you play a B, now all of a sudden you play an A again, and it sounds novel again to us. Thing though is, you can't just repeat everything again. We start to get tired again faster of the repetition. So you could maybe get past 3 A's, but then you're going to need another B again. Maybe then you're going to get 2 A's before you're going to get another B again to dishabituate us from the A. But so there's a strategy here. Repetition, dishabituation, repetition, dishabituation. If you want to make this keep going even longer, because clearly you're going to run out of room here. So you play C, A, B, C. Now you can go back to the A's again. Now here's what's so interesting about this pattern. And this is something Derek Thompson, he wrote a book called, I think it was called like Hitmakers. Derek Thompson is the one who introduced me to David Huron's work. Derek Thompson had a really interesting conclusion from all this. If you look kind of like right in this area, if you turn an A into a verse and you pretend a B is the chorus and D is what's called the bridge in music, this is the skeleton of like most pop songs. Verse, verse, chorus, bridge, verse. Go look up some cool pop songs and you're gonna see the same kind of repetition. There's like verse, verse, chorus, then there's a bridge, then you might hear another verse, then you might hear a chorus again. But there's repetition and dishabituation. Repetition, dishabituation. It's fascinating. There is an algorithm for creating enjoyable things because there's repetition and not making us get bored and start ignoring it. How does this have anything to do with Casey Neistat? If you go look at a lot of his videos, I think you see a lot of the same repetition. Grab some of those videos, and what you see is how he uses music and moving pictures to create almost a pop music pattern. He'll do some form of like camera interaction monologue, and then there will be music. Then there's monologue again. Then there's the same music to some form of montage. Then there's monologue again. Often, he'll come up with a bridge in which he's now in a studio and he's doing some sort of craft project. That's one of the most interesting things about Casey's stuff is that he brings this kind of repetition and consistency, and yet he does it in such an interesting pop song-like way that we stay hooked. We stay hooked to the music, we stay hooked to his videos. This is just really useful advice, I think, for anybody making anything creative. This isn't just for music, this isn't just for filmmaking. Writing probably falls into this. Your writing should probably fall into some kind of pattern, but not so long that we all start to ignore it. Hopefully, if you're a creator, that helps spur some brainstorming about how to make your stuff better. And if you dig these videos, please hit the thumbs up. Subscribe if you're new here, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye, everybody. But doing something called dishabituation, dishabituation.